Today on our 2008 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD, we're going to be taking a look at and installing the B&W turnover ball underbed gooseneck trailer hitch with custom installation kit, part number BWG NRK 1067. Here's what it's going to look like once it's installed on your vehicle. As you can see, we've got the ball right here for the gooseneck hitch, and that's about all you really have that's in the bed. So when you're using your hitch, if you're say camping or traveling or anything like that, you can still put some other things in the bed around it, because you're not going to have the set of rails that's up top and the big fifth wheel. You're just going to have this ball right here in the center, so it's going to be a lot more convenient for you. In order to lock and unlock the ball in place, you pull out on this handle and turn it clockwise, and it'll stay in the unlocked position. And then when you're ready to lock your ball back into the hitch, whether in the up or down position, simply pull out on it, straighten it out, and let it pull back in and latch that ball in place. Whenever you're all done using it and you want to store the ball away, you simply pull that latch handle over in the driver's fender, lift the ball up, flip it over, lower it back down, and latch it back into place. So you can see now with that flipped over, you're going to have full bed access. Here we've got the spring-loaded safety chain connections that when you're ready to use them, you pull them up from underneath the vehicle, clip your safety chains to them, and you're ready to roll. But then when you're all done and you take your safety chains off, since they're spring-loaded, they'll suck right back down into this lower end of the bed corrugation here. So that way they're pretty flush with the bed and you have full usability, and they won't risk catching anything you may need to slide in or out. This is a one-piece machine 2 5/16 ball, and you can see it's got the cutouts here on the corners, and they did that to help dirt and debris fall through so that it doesn't collect and gum up and make it difficult to get the ball in and out. It features a 7,500 pound vertical load limit and a 30,000 pound max towing capacity. Now, let's show you how this kit is installed. First thing we'll need to do to begin our installation is we'll need to find the center point in our bed that we're going to be drilling out our hole. And in order to do that, first we'll use the measurements given in the instructions, because they're different for a 6.5 foot bed or an 8 foot bed. And we've got an 8 foot bed here, but you want to measure from the very end of the tailgate down there to the point indicated in the instructions. And you can use a light colored permanent marker or paint marker, something like that, in order to mark your position. And then once you've got the measurement from the end, you want to measure side to side in order to get the center point. So we'll mark that location so that we know the point that we'll be drilling out our pilot hole right there. So I'm going to take an 1/8 inch drill bit in order to drill out my pilot hole. Now, if you've got a drop-in bed liner, you want to be sure that any measurements and your locations are going to be the exact same, and that it doesn't add too much distance, because any type of bed liner will add a little bit of thickness. So you want to make sure everything's in the right location. And these drop-in bed liners, they can shift a little bit on you when they're sitting in the bed, so you want to be aware of that. So now I'll take a hole saw that's the size that is listed in the instructions, and then I'll use that pilot hole in order to drill this out. I'm going to take a little bit of spray paint and just spray that edge that's now an exposed metal edge, just to help prevent it from rusting. I've gone ahead and removed the spare tire and both rear wheels in order to give myself more room to work. I'm going to hang a support strap up here to help support the exhaust, because we're going to have to take some of the hangers off in order to let it hang to give ourselves better access. I'm just going to set it here so it won't let it go very far when I take those hangers off. First one I'll take off, it's going to be this one that's just behind the rear axle. I'm going to put a little bit of spray lubricant on there just to help ease with removal. And you can take a pry bar, or if you've got exhaust hanger pliers or channel locks, they also work well. Now I'm going to loosen the bolts that are up here at this flange. And I'm just going to loosen them. I'm not going to take them all the way out because this is just going to allow it to turn down and drop a little bit more towards the rear of the truck. There's going to be 3 total, 2 on the lower side and then 1 up top. So now with all that loose, you can lower the exhaust a little bit more here at the rear of the truck. We're going to need to cut out a section of this heat shield, or we can remove it, taking out the small bolts that hold it in. And we'll need to remove that so that we can get our gooseneck hitch to go up into position, because this heat shield's going to be in the way for that. So I'm going to mark where I'm going to cut it here. I've gone ahead and marked the notches here according to the measurements given in the instructions. And that way we'll be cutting out that area in order to help slide our rails in. You can use a grinder or Dremel tool in order to cut that out, but with this wire being right here, I'm just going to play it safe. I'm going to use some tin snip to cut this out. We've got another exposed metal edge here, so I'm just going to help protect that a little bit. Now from the passenger side where we made our notch, we can install our front cross member by sliding it across. And the front one's the one that's angled and has the holes on the one side. And you want those holes to face towards the back to start. Then we can take that and work it forward so that it's towards that front hat channel. And we can slide our rear cross member into place. And when we do that, we'll want to make sure that the shorter side between the edge and the hole is going to be down. And we'll need to get both our front and rear cross members to stand up. And to do that, you can use a pry bar, or you can use a large pair of pliers if you have them to help stand them upright. On the front cross member, the second hole coming from the driver's side, before you put that cross section up into place, what we'll need to do is put one of the 1/2 inch by 1.5 inch long bolts up in there, and it comes with a rubber O-ring. You'll need to install that so that rubber O-ring will help hold that bolt in place, because you're not going to be able to slide that bolt in because it'll be up on top of the fuel tank here. So then we can take our front cross member and slide it up into about the position we'll need it in order to install our center section. So now it's a good idea to grab a second set of hands to help you get this put up into place and secured. And you want this spring-loaded latching mechanism to go towards the driver's side. So then from the front, you'll need to get the 1/2 inch bolts started. And once you've got the bolts through, you'll need to install a lock washer and 1/2 inch hex nut on those 3 front bolts. Now for each location up here, for the rear cross member, we'll get it lined up and install our 1/2 inch bolt with lock washer and flat washer, and then thread it through into the rear cross member here. There's a factory trailer brake system that's installed on this, and these two bolts are what's holding it to the inside of the frame right there. So we'll take a 10mm socket and we'll need to remove that. Move it down out of the way for now, because we're going to need access to this large oval hole right there. We've got the two parts of our side plate that will go together, and those square holes will line up with those oval holes there. And on each side, we'll be using 3 1/2-inch carriage bolts. So you'll feed them from the back side of the plate with the square holes. Then take the other plate and slide it onto those carriage bolts. On each one we'll take flat washer, lock washer, and 1/2-inch hex nut. And we'll leave those hand tight so that we've got some movement if we need to adjust it. We can then slide our side plate up into place. We'll install one of those 1/2-inch bolts, followed by a flat washer, lock washer, and 1/2-inch hex nut. And then for the rear rail, we'll use 1/2-inch bolt with lock washer and flat washer, and we'll thread it in to the existing hole. So now we'll install this U-bolt that goes over the frame. But when you do that, you want to be sure to watch out for any electrical wires or brake lines or anything like that to make sure that they won't get pinched on the underneath on the inside of that frame. We'll get it out through the holes here. And on each one, we'll install a lock washer and 1/2-inch nut. Now we can put our 3/4-inch bolt through this large hole from the inside, and we'll need to send it through that hole in order to help secure that bracket to the frame. But since we had to remove this trailer brake control module, we're going to need to mount it back up someplace, and they give us this bracket. So we'll put the bolt through that bracket, and we'll also slide this little frame insert over it, because that's going to fill up that oblong hole as it goes through there. And you want to be sure that you get that frame spacer seated all the way in there. We'll install our lock washer and then our 3/4-inch hex nut. So then we'll repeat that same process for the other side. We'll use a flat washer instead of that bracket. Now we'll begin tightening all of our bolts that go into our center section through our cross members. Once we've tightened our cross members down, we'll go back and torque them to the specification listed in the instructions. Now we can tighten up our 3/4-inch bolts. We'll use a 1 1/8 socket in order to do that. Then I'll torque it down according to the specification listed in the instructions. Next thing to tighten out is going to be these U-bolt frame clamps. And as we tighten these up, we want to tighten them slowly, and we want to do it evenly, switching back and forth between them so that they don't get too uneven with how far they are onto the threads. As you tighten these down, it can bend the side plate a little bit, but that's okay, because this side place is nice and sturdy, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. And as you tighten these, you definitely want to be sure to check what the torque spec is for all the different hardware. Now we can tighten down our 3 carriage bolts on each side that bolt our side plates together. And those we will also be torquing to the specification in the instructions. And then finally, we need to tighten down and torque the bolts that secure our side plates to our cross rails. Now I'm back under the vehicle with this trailer brake control unit. I'm going to reinstall these bolts most of the way in. Then I'll be able to get ready to reinstall it onto that bracket. I'll slide them down into the slots of that bracket, and then I'll take 10mm ratchet wrench and tighten them up. Now we need to install our latch handle. So we can send it through here, and we'll send it through both openings, both here and the one that's in the center section. So we can send it through in order to get ready to secure it using this carriage bolt and flange nut provided in the kit. So once it's fed through, take that carriage bolt and feed it through the back side of that square hole on the mechanism, and then through the loop in the latch handle. Then on that back side, we'll put this locking flange nut. Then we can use a 1/2" wrench in order to tighten that up. So now with the handle attached, you can see we've got full function where you can unlock and then lock in the ball. Now I can drill out my pilot holes from underneath here for my safety chain U-bolts. With the pilot holes drilled out, I'll come back up to the top and then step my drill bit sizes up until I've reached a 1/2" for those U-bolts to fit through. With my holes drilled out, I can take my 1/2" U-bolts and drop them down through. And back on the underside of those U-bolts, you can put one of these conical springs up there with the small end facing down. Then we can put on one of our 1/2" lock nuts, and we'll do that for both sides of the U-bolt. Then we can do that same thing to the other one. Once they're all started, what you want to do is tighten them up until that bolt is about flush with the opening in the nut. Now we can reinstall our exhaust. Once we're done with that, we can remove our support strap. Now we'll reinstall our rear tires and our spare tire. And that's going to complete our look at and installation of the B&W Turnover Ball Underbed Gooseneck Trailer Hitch with Custom Installation Kit, part number BWG NRK 1067 on our 2008 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com.